At some point in the somewhat distant future, I am going to get back to working on the Jeep, so I should probably start thinking about clearing some stuff off of it. One of the things I want to deal with is this electric hoist that a viewer gave to me. This is a Budgit hoist. It's 1 ton. Budgit is still around. This one's Brandon, Manning, Maxwell, and Moore. They got bought out in 1964, so that probably puts this late 50s or early 60s. The viewer that gave this to me said he got it in the 70s, but never did anything with it. He also said he didn't know if it's 120 volt or 240 volt. He said it didn't have a plug on it when he got it, and he put a 120 volt plug on it just to check, but he's not sure what voltage it should be running on. So it's probably the first thing I need to address. There's nothing on the nameplate that says what voltage it should be. The only thing that's on here is amps, and it's kind of destroyed, but it says 5-2. Where it says feet per minute is also sort of destroyed, but that doesn't really help us because this is an induction motor, so the speed of the motor is based more on the frequency and less so on the voltage. I got on eBay and did find a parts list and instruction manual. It has a whole bunch of wiring diagrams for all of the various different motors that came with these. I think the two we're looking at are these two General Electric motors having capacitor and series relay. But there's really not a whole lot of difference in the wiring between the 120 and the 240 volt ones. So I think kind of the thing to do is to tear into this. It'll give me a chance to assess the wiring, because we kind of know how that goes with old motors. At least I've got a motor that works now. And maybe we'll find something that'll give us a clue as to what the voltage is supposed to be. It's the proper use of snap ring pliers, right? Actually, it looks like if I pull these, I can pull the whole stator off. Except I can't get that one off. How do I get that off? Aha. I just set this thing on the floor so I can push into this screw a little more. There it goes. You can tell this power cord's getting replaced, so it's gone. What insulation is left is pretty crispy. Well, what did I learn here? The wiring's in reasonably good shape. I'm not too worried about that. It's not a dual voltage motor. There's just one set of leads coming off the main windings. It looks like the way this is wired is closer to the 240 volt wiring. I did find another catalog listing on eBay that said that the D9 model is 240 volt. The thing that was kind of throwing me off is the 240 volt is supposed to have a black wire and a red wire, and this one had a black wire and a white wire, like the 120 volt. That terminal doesn't match the ones on the motor, and I don't think that was a factory splice, so I'm guessing that cord was replaced. This piece is, well, pretty broken and kind of banana-shaped. It's supposed to be banana-shaped that way, but not that way. And you can see on the parts manual that it's missing the little ears that the pull cord's attached to. But I think between that and the piece I have enough to know how it's supposed to look. I could cast one of these, but it's a simple enough shape, and I've been learning to TIG weld lately, so I think I'm going to try to fabricate it. Well, that's not exactly right, but I think for what I had to go off of, that's going to work just fine. And the needle scaler does a pretty good job on that, blending it together. And I think if you picked that up, you'd be kind of hard-pressed to tell it's not actually cast. The bolt that holds that on is also banana-shaped. I think I can just take that one and cut it down. It needs to have a long unthreaded portion. That way those holes aren't on the threaded part. Should I paint this thing? Well, probably, but I don't have any yellow paint, so I'd have to go buy yellow paint. And if I buy yellow paint, I should probably paint the rest of this, which means taking it all apart, degreasing everything completely, doing all that, and, well, I just really don't care what it actually ends up looking like, so I'm not going to. When this thing is all put together, it weighs about 90 pounds, which in kilograms is a little bit too heavy for me to lift comfortably. So I've kind of been wondering how I'm going to get it up there. But it occurred to me I can hang it in pieces and then put it together. Now, I know you're wondering, do I really trust a chain hoist that's 60 years old and has an unknown history? Well, Probably more than I trust this cheap Chinese chain hoist. Of course, this does make it tougher for me to show putting this thing back together, but I've got a pretty tall tripod. This capacitor cover's hitting there. Gotta loosen that up a little bit. Of course, it would have made a lot more sense to change the oil in this while it was on the ground. What do we think the chances are that there's actually oil in here anyway? One of the fun things with vintage equipment is trying to figure out the modern equivalents of obsolete lubricants. You get a whole list of different companies that are no longer in business or bought out, making products that are no longer available. Except for the Saucony Vacuum Mobile DTE Medium Heavy. It's a little bit different name, but this seems to cross-reference to it, and I only need about a pint of this. So, this should be about a lifetime supply. Look at that. There's a little oil cup here. You probably can't even see it from there. There you go. I wonder if I can do this without a funnel. I'm getting most of it in there. Once I got it started, it's fine. Now it's coming out the little level hole here, so we're good to go. Really should make a cover for this drum switch before I plug this thing in. At least I'm getting my exercise going up and down here. It's kind of a little slot here, and it's bashed in. Huh. I feel like that's a pretty low effort solution, but it should work. So what's kind of cool here is when this hook comes up, it hits this lever, shuts it off, and the same with the loop on the other side. When it's going down, if it gets to the end, it'll pull up one. The original system for the handles on here is pretty neat. Let's make some and I'll show you. The magic with this thing is the second handle gets 2 holes through it. Right about there seems pretty good. And now this one goes through that. So now if I pull the bottom handle, it goes down. Except I got the cords backwards. Alright, got the cords swapped. Down. Up. I added a twist lock outlet and plug so I don't have to worry about this thing unplugging itself. Guess I ought to wrap this up by lifting something heavy, and this anvil should do pretty well. Might also be a good way to take care of that Roadrunner infestation I have. Look, this one didn't really take a whole lot, so at this point I just need to milk it for all it's worth. Well, I didn't really need this thing, but it's going to be pretty cool to have around the shop. I hope you enjoyed that and wanted to say thanks for hanging out with me.